You're listening to Wisp Sports Radio's Walk, Don't Run, the race walking show. And here are your hosts, Cindy Lehman and Sarah Gross.
Hello, and welcome to our new Wisp Sports podcast, Walk, Don't Run. I'm Sarah Gross, and I am here with my co-host, Cindy Lehman. Cindy is a recreational walker and former CEO of Walk Magazine. Hi, Cindy. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am great. I have my first question for you, Cindy, that I really want to know is, how does someone get into the sport of walking?
Well, I actually got into it because of feeling old. In my late 30s, my entire family was hiking, and I couldn't keep up with any of the adults. And I was younger than all of them by 5 years. I was thinner than all of them, and I was only in my 30s. And I thought, man, if I am in this bad a shape now, what's going to happen when I turn 40 or 50? So I started walking as soon as we got home. And a friend talked me into doing a 5K, and then she talked me into a half marathon. And then for my 40th birthday, I did a full marathon. And I just felt invincible. I was the healthiest I had ever been in my life. I felt like I really accomplished something. And I've been walking ever since.
So as a triathlete, I have to ask you this, because I'm sure a lot of people ask you this, though, so I apologize ahead of time. Why not running? Why walking? What was the appeal of walking specifically?
Well, first of all, I absolutely hate running. I can't stand the pounding. It's so uncomfortable for me. I just can't I don't like it. My legs don't like it. My back doesn't like it. So with walking, there's never that pounding. I still get the endorphins. I still get all the rushes from accomplishing something. I'm a little bit slower than an average runner, but I feel better when I finish.
And so when you do marathons, do you do just a regular, say, a big city marathon, so there's runners out ahead of you and there's walkers at the back? Is that how it works?
Sometimes. I typically only do half marathons now because I don't like having to train so long to do a full marathon. It's basically having a part-time job. So I like half marathons. I can do several a year, and I feel good when I finish. And then I don't have to take the entire rest of the weekend sleeping like I do after I do a full marathon.
So on this podcast moving forward, it's about race walking. So what can we expect? What kind of topics are going to be covered on the podcast?
Though we probably will get into some basic just training topics. What I foresee is talking more about race walking as a sport. So how to get into race walking, what do race walkers do, who are the key race walkers, how can you become a race walker? There are a lot of opportunities for competition for people of all ages in this sport. So I think we're going to, I might even find some things like just basic nutrition and how to balance training and life too.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think walking or fast walking, race walking is probably really underestimated and under talked about in terms of a way to keep healthy, don't you think?
Oh, definitely. If you tell someone that you walked a marathon, they look at you like, well, why would you bother if you're just going to walk it? But they don't realize that the average person walking a marathon might be doing a 12-minute mile. That's a pretty fast pace.
Yeah, I went for a 2-hour walk the other day, and I was actually exhausted by the end. And I can go for a 2-hour bike ride any day of the week, or even a 2-hour run. So it is quite a different thing, and it's a sport unto itself, for sure.
Yes, and if you're walking slow, you're using your muscles so differently from when you run. Or when I'm walking slow, I get more exhausted too, because it's so different from when I'm walking fast.
So our first guest is race walking coach Bonnie Stein. Cindy, you know Bonnie. Tell us a little bit about her.
Well, Bonnie Stein has been teaching group race walking classes and individual private lessons for over 28 years. She's known in Tampa Bay as the Walk Your Talk coach. She's helped thousands of people of all ages and fitness levels.
Bonnie, hi, welcome. It sounds like you are extremely qualified to explain some of the basics as well as some of the finer points of race walking.
Can you tell people what race walking actually is and how it's different from just power walking or fast walking?
I was introduced to race walking by a former Olympian, Henry Laskow. Race walking is an Olympic sport. It's been an Olympic sport since 1908. That's over 100 years. And for men, for the first time, race walking became an Olympic sport for women in 1992 in Barcelona. Yet, the very interesting, even when I got into race walking 32 years ago, and it was not an Olympic sport at that time for women, though it was a nationally competitive sport, I could see that even though I became a competitor pretty quickly and was trained to be a competitor, I started seeing that there are so many fabulous benefits from the techniques that the Olympic race walkers use that I felt could be used for fitness, to enhance our fitness. And interestingly, in the 32 years that I have been race walking, since I've changed from running to walking, I would say I am just as fit now as I ever was with running. And one extra little benefit, in 32 years, I have never had an injury that could be attributed to race walking. Now, I couldn't say that about my running days because I was getting injured every few months, which culminated in that torn meniscus. But since I've been race walking, not a single injury in 32 years. You asked about the difference between race walking and power walking. Right up front, I love to say that any kind of walking is better than not walking. And I'd rather see anybody out every single day. We're finding more and more literature and more research about the benefits of simply being active and every day being active. So I would encourage everybody to get out there and walk. The benefits of race walking over regular power walking is that the specific techniques to race walking can enhance more of your fitness by being able to make you walk faster, allowing you to walk faster, which many runners have told me. I have lots of runners who take my classes, injured runners, former runners, who take my classes and say, I'm just not getting a good workout with walking. Well, that's where race walking can come on board and help us get that cardiovascular benefit that for some really, really fit people, regular walking may not be enough.
For example, Bonnie, what's the thing with the knees?
So one of the, there's only two official rules of race walking that make race walking, designate race walking different from any other sport. And there's a lot of different techniques that go along with race walking, only two official rules. You mentioned one of the rules, which is that the knee must be completely straight as soon as your heel makes contact with the ground. The knee must be straight, and it must stay straight until you've passed through what's called the vertical support phase, when the body passes over the knee. So that is a rule as it differentiates from a technique. And that would keep a race walker official or keep a race walker from being disqualified should they enter a judged race walk event. However, the question becomes, is that knee technique so important? Is that knee rule so important for somebody who, let's say, wants to be a fitness walker? I actually believe it is. Although in fitness walking or somebody who is race walking for fitness, nobody's ever going to check to make sure their knees are perfectly straight. In fact, in my beginning race walking classes, which is a once a week class for 6 weeks, I don't even mention the knees up front. We don't even talk about it till the very, very last week of class, and letting the people know that this is something that they can do that will enhance their walking, even if they don't choose to ever enter a judged race walk. So if you're asking, Cindy, does the idea of the straight knee freak some people out? I would say that I sort of circumvent that by not even mentioning it up front. Why? Because that's not even going to be one of the techniques that is going to give you a great fitness enhancement benefit from your walking. So we can talk about the straight knee issue later on when the person decides to be a competitor.
And so then the other rule is that one foot must be on the ground at all times.
Yes. So that first rule that you mentioned, the straight knee rule, says that that differentiates race walking from just regular fitness walking or power walking or any other kind of walking. The second rule that you just mentioned, that is 1 foot must be on the ground at all times, that differentiates race walking from running. And if somebody is having 1 foot on the ground at all times, even a regular fitness walker would have that too, would be complying with that rule as well.
And if you are in a judged race walk and you are breaking one of these rules, what happens?
Good question. So if you were breaking one of those rules in a judged race walk, that walker would be disqualified. Just like any other sport, if you were breaking one of the rules of that sport, you would be disqualified. However, the interesting thing is that all the techniques that have to go with race walking that make that walker faster, the judges in the event are not watching for those rules. For those techniques. The judges in those events are simply looking for those two rules. So if you, let's say, for example, one of the techniques of race walking that makes a race walker faster would be using your race walking arms. If you're in a judged race walk and you're not using your race walking arms properly, you're not going to be disqualified because that's not what the judges are supposed to look at. Now, if you're not using your race walking arms, I can pretty much guarantee that that walker is not going to be very competitive. He's not going to be able to go very fast. However, he or she would never get disqualified. You're only going to get disqualified if you're breaking one of those two rules that you first mentioned.
And you might as well explain what race walking arms are.
Okay, so one of the very first techniques that I love to teach, because I believe there's so much benefit, even for people who have no desire to compete, who have no desire to race, using your race walking arms. Description of that would be you'd bend your arms in about a 90-degree angle, and you keep those arms close in and streamlined to your body as opposed to what race walkers might call chicken winging, when your arms are flapping out. Instead, you keep your arms close in and streamlined. Why? Because we know that any lateral motion takes away from forward motion. So if I see a walker with their arms swinging to the side, I know that that walker is not going to be as efficient as she has the potential to being. The other thing about using your race walking arms is that when you bend your arms in that 90-degree angle, you're going to have a shorter pendulum. A shorter pendulum is always a faster pendulum. Think about a pendulum on a grandfather clock. The taller the grandfather clock, the longer the pendulum, the longer it's going to take to swing from one side to the other. So if we shorten that pendulum by bending our arms in 90-degree angles, we've got a shorter and therefore much more efficient pendulum swinging faster. The faster that my arms can go through their range of motion, the quicker my feet are going to be able to plant on the ground. Thereby, I'm going to be able to be biomechanically faster without even trying.
I've never been to a judged race walk before, but at these events, is there a category for an unjudged category that anyone can just enter?
There are in some events, and I'm glad you mentioned that because those are the events that I think are the absolute best. Because many new walkers, even pretty fast walkers, can be quite intimidated by a judged race walk if they're not that familiar with race walking, or if they've never had a race walking coach. They may know that they're a pretty fast walker, but not feeling quite comfortable about the judged part of the walking event. So the races that I like best are the ones where they have that option. A person can sign up to say, yes, I'm going to be one of the race walkers who are being judged, or a person can sign up to say, I'm in the competitive walking event, and I don't want to be judged, and I don't want to be going for those race walking specific awards.
Right. It makes sense that the more inclusive events would be better in a sense. Do you have a group that you walk with every week? Does the group meet and walk together? How does it work?
I have a group here in St. Petersburg. Pretty much every city where I've ever lived, we've had a race walking club. In Atlanta, before Atlanta, Boca Raton, and now I live in the Tampa Bay area in St. Petersburg. And we do, as the race walkers have finished their classes, they do come once a week to join the group and just race walk for fitness. There's no at that point, there's no teaching going on anymore. There's no class going on for them, but they can come and meet with all of the race walkers who have taken classes and just join in and have fun. Nobody's looking at their technique because it's not a race.
Bonnie, if people are doing judged race walks, what are the most common distances they should be training for?
5 kilometers is the easiest one to get a beginner in. Most of my students who are just brand new to race walking, I always recommend starting with a 5 kilometer first and feeling good about that. We do have more 5Ks than we have anything else in Florida. So I think that's a great, easy way to get started. I also am not a big proponent of a brand new beginner starting out with a half marathon or a full marathon. I think that makes more sense to work up to that and to feel really competent at the shorter distance races. So 5 kilometer, we have a few 10 kilometer, and we certainly do have some half marathons.
Well, and in the Olympics, they do 20 kilometers for women and men, and also a 50 kilometer for men, which is the longest race that's in the Olympics, correct?
That is absolutely correct. When you ask most runners, hey, what do you think is the longest distance in the Olympics, foot race in the Olympics? Most runners would say, oh, for sure, it's the marathon. And yet, indeed, it's not the marathon. It is the 50 kilometer race walk at 31 plus miles. The 50 kilometer race walk is 6 miles longer than a full marathon.
Just for a point of comparison, those guys who are winning Olympic gold, how long does it take them to do the 50K?
Those winners of the 50 kilometer are race walking that distance at under a 7-minute mile. Walking under a 7-minute mile and keeping it up for 31 miles. The winners who were doing the 20 kilometers, the men that are doing the 20 kilometers, that's 12.4 miles. They are doing that at about 6.5-minute miles and keeping it up for almost 12.5 miles. Pretty amazing.
It's amazing. Yeah. And is there an advocacy group or someone we can follow that's trying to get the women into the 50K?
Wow, I have no idea.
I should look it up.
I mean, it's a great question. And I would say I do remember that question being thrown about. It usually comes out after every Olympics. So now we've passed 2016 Olympics. You're going to hear, I know that we heard that at the time. After the 2012 Olympics, we heard that question rumbling at that time too. I have no idea if anything was ever said about that, or even if it was contemplated, I don't really know.
Yeah, well, we'll follow up on that here on WISP for sure. Bonnie, thank you so much for coming on the show today and for being part of our very first episode of Walk, Don't Run. So we really enjoyed having you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure.
Bye, Bonnie.
Bye-bye.
So that's about it for our first episode of Walk, Don't Run. For more amazing women's sports coverage, go to wispsports.com. Follow our Wisp Sports Facebook page or at Wisp Sports on Twitter so you don't miss out on our latest podcasts, videos, and inside info from the world's best athletes. And of course, join Cindy and I next month for another episode of Walk, Don't Run. Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you.